Hey everybody, welcome to the transformational space. My last video I posted was about the time it takes for transformation in the material world. That's the external space, right? And then the time it takes on the internal space and relational world with the people in our lives. This is a whole nother aspect of a time that's needed to make a change in transformational space. So the first thing I'm going to go back to again is changing thoughts around the people that are in our lives, right? I used my example of moving as a big change. It can be anything that's going on in your life. You could be leaving a relationship, which I was also going through. It can be letting go of a friendship, which I was also going through at the same time. Um, and really understanding your thoughts around those things, right? I can share with you one thought transformation that needed to happen for me in my relationship. We had come to a point where we felt our relationship was very familial, which you might think is a good thing, but there are aspects of relationships that go beyond feeling just familial, and some of that has to do with romantic situation in your relationship, or the excitement or the enjoyment of things that you both like to engage in. And when you realize some of that has changed, not wanting to let go of someone whom you love and is a good person, we often, and in the grieving process this happens too, go into this space of denial, which our thoughts kind of shift around and think about how can we make this work, right? And maybe we'll just share space together and love one another in a familial way instead of a romantic way. And it takes time to kind of go through that thought process and what does that mean? Is that realistic? Are we wanting to sacrifice certain things about a romantic relationship that we feel we can or can't live with? And it takes time to go through all of these thoughts. And then how do I feel about that? And am I okay with that? And so first, we sit with, yes, I'll be fine. It's no problem. I don't need that aspect of this relationship to go on in a partnership with someone, because we want the partnership to work. So we explore this idea, right? And exploration is a big part of understanding thoughts and emotions and just stepping into what we might consider doing next as we're making a change or looking toward transforming something. And it takes time to explore these things. Another example I can share with you is with a friend that I was planning to move with. And during this process, I had this realization of 23 years prior, I had planned to move with a friend. And my whole move was based around where I was going, what I was engaging in was based around this friendship that I had and this move that I was going to make. And I decided on the place I was moving with this person and all these plans that I made. And right at the last minute, this person backed out and I moved. And I moved to a place that I had decided upon with someone else, not fully my decision, although I was okay with it. And I stayed there and made a life for 23 years. Now, I don't regret any of that, but what I realized in this time I took to kind of analyze my thoughts is that, am I making a move with a friend again based upon what they want to do? And it took some time to sit with that and really understand if that's what was going on. Was I living in a circle? Was I going to do the same thing I had done 23 years ago with a different person in a different place? It took some time to understand that. And it was wonderful that I had this time to realize what was going on here, because I didn't want to do the same thing again. I didn't want to live in a circle. I didn't want to continue a pattern of something that brought me somewhere that wasn't fully my decision this time. And as I processed how I thought about this and how I felt about this, I came to the understanding that no, it didn't matter if this person was going to come or not. I eventually got to the realization that I was going to do this on my own. And it was good that I did that, because in the meantime, this friendship ended. And I still moved to the place that I knew I wanted to go. But if I hadn't taken time to think about this and process how I felt about it, I could have overlooked it. And maybe I would have moved to a place for someone else, for someone else's ideas, and neglected my own. So, and with the relationship situation too, understanding that no, it's not right for me to ignore a romantic aspect of a relationship. It's not right for me to ignore differences in interests, extreme differences in interests. It's not okay for me to continue to do that. And it's not okay to subject the other person to that. When you love someone, it's important to take your own needs into consideration, because when you neglect those, multiple things can come into play, including resentment and anger, and processing all this stuff before you make a change takes time, and it's exhausting, and you need space to do it, and you need a rest in between. So this is another aspect of time in transformation with the relationships around you. Now, even with taking action on how I was going to, separate myself from some of the people in my life at the time, when you make a change about how you're going to be moving forward, the people around you respond to that very differently. Some are, enthusiastic about what you're doing and supportive, and some are not, because they're not receiving what they used to receive from the relationship that you were in with them, whether it be good things or bad things or drama or manipulation. If you stop doing certain things and create boundaries, especially when you acknowledge what is and isn't okay for you anymore, you will have reactions from other people in your life. And if you're moving or if you're shifting something in your life, these things come up and they take time to work through. And it takes time to be able to be okay before you step into whatever new space you're stepping into. And you need to find support while you're going through that. And for me, moving to a new location and creating these changes in my life and in relationships caused a lot of distress, especially when part of the time I had to stay with the people that were causing me some of the severe anxiety. I didn't have to, but to leave the situation would have been more difficult than to just stay in it at the time and work through it. And that was a choice that I made based on a risk assessment, a pros and cons list. Was it going to be more difficult for me to just stay put and work through what I was dealing with the people that I was living with? Or would it be better for me to just leave the space and, go somewhere else? And then the question comes to, where am I going to go temporarily? How much is that going to cost? Is it feasible? All my things are at the place that I live. And it just, for me, came to a point of, it's not easier, but just better to just stay put and finish this out and then leave from the space that you're in. And that was a choice I made, but it took time to do that too. All this stuff takes time. And then I had to think about who I needed to say goodbye to. I needed to say goodbye to friends. I needed to say goodbye to family. I needed to say goodbye to spaces, because for me, I have an emotional attachment to the spaces that I stay in. They provide me security and safety and attachment, and I had a lot of attachment issues that I was dealing with people, and I needed to really address some of that too. How would I leave emotionally and be okay? That comes with tears. For me, it came with tears. And it comes with for me, it came with developing community that could support me through that time. And again, it took time to do that. And so in the present, when it's happening, it can feel like, I just want to get on with my life. I just want to get going. And I've done that too. I've just cut people out and just said goodbye and left. And the problem with that is it doesn't ever really go away. It's unresolved. Some of us are very good at detaching emotionally, and although that can be helpful, sometimes when that's a regular practice, it becomes difficult to be vulnerable. And without vulnerability, it's difficult to have a full, open, in-depth relationship with someone. You never can quite let yourself go there. So being vulnerable on the exit is really important to completely resolve the emotional experience that you've had with this person, and it takes time to do that. It's a lot of grieving. If you don't do it, you never get through it, and then those emotional things come up later on, and we have to find ways of avoiding that because it's too difficult to deal with because we didn't deal with it, or maybe the person's gone, now we can't deal with it, or we feel like we can't deal with it. This becomes a very problematic, vicious cycle, especially if you involve alcohol and substances, or over exercising, or overworking, or overeating, or over anything that you can do to avoid those situations. This transitional moment, when you're transitioning out of a relationship, friendship, family situation with anybody, takes time, and you cannot rush it. You can keep it moving, but you can't rush it. And so give yourself time and space to do that when you're making a transformation, especially in relational situations. You need time to process that stuff. Until you feel okay. And sometimes you're not going to feel okay by the time you make the change. But if you've got it all out there, it's all in motion, you're able to communicate it, you're sitting with the feelings, you understand the thoughts. It's still much better than just leaving the situation or cutting someone off. So it takes time. And the end result, whatever that may be, we really want to be left with the feeling of I did everything that I thought I should do. I did it right for myself. I was respectful to myself. I was respectful to other people. Your ego's going to want to jump in here and get back at people that got at you, and you can do that, but ultimately you're going to be the one left with the repercussions of your internal issues that come with that, the subconscious suffering. There's nothing worse than subconscious suffering because you're emotionally distraught and you don't even understand why. Hurting people that hurt you don't make you feel better in the long run. It might, feed that ego, but the suffering will come later. And if you want to get out and of the space that you need to get out of emotionally, you gotta wrap it up. I'm sorry to be the one to tell you that the work has to happen, but if you want to feel okay when you're all done, it's worth the pain and suffering that you might have to go through to get there. Because when you get to the next destination, all this transitional stuff is temporary stuff. Processing things is temporary. Changing is temporary. Although it's a continuation in its own way, when it's a big one, it's temporary, and then you get to the next destination. And then, it happens in different ways, but it takes time. So I just wanted to follow up with this relational aspect of transformation and the time that it takes, and we need to give ourselves for this because it's different than the material transformation and time it takes to transform in the external world. And a lot of times it's happening simultaneously. So rest. It can be exhausting, but you can do it. Until next time.